Welcome. I appreciate you guys showing up. As previously stated, I graduated Lawrence Tech in 1990. I started working for Michigan Control Systems soon after I graduated, and we'll get into that shortly. I went to North Farmington High School. I born and raised in Michigan. I've pretty much never left, and when I came to Lawrence Tech, I came to be pretty much an engineer. That's what I wanted to do, and I kind of gravitated towards sales as I went through Lawrence Tech, and had different things that led to that, and we'll get into that shortly. We're going to cover today the professional journey that I went through, some current roles, the business model that Michigan Environmental currently has, and some of the places where we're going, and some of the places where we've modified our strategic alliances so that we could actually make sure that we're still around tomorrow. Personal background, like I said, born and raised in Michigan, graduated in 1990 from LTU with BSME, and I am a SIGEP, and proud of it. Business owner since 1994, married with a little girl, Brooklyn. As a SIGEP, I pretty much decided from the get-go, if you didn't participate in programs at Lawrence Tech, like some of the extracurricular activities and the Greek life, that I felt that you didn't have the option to be well-rounded as a graduate, and that was my personal opinion. And so I got involved with SIGEP, and pretty much was on committees and or an officer, and that really kind of started shaping where I was going with being in front of people, engaging with customers. All that kind of stemmed from working within the organization and trying to establish whatever goal that we had, whether it was a volleyball marathon, housing committee, whatever it was. I worked as a activities director at Nippersink Manor Resort. Kind of took me out of my comfort zone. I also worked at Thompson International, did engineering for wheel trim, caps, covers, retention systems. That was pretty interesting. Was involved in the mini Baja fabrication, steering modification. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, actually. Well, when I graduated Lawrence Tech, I couldn't get a job as a sales engineer like I thought I was going to. I had really gotten engaged by Khalil Terraman, and Dr. Terraman, I just loved his class, and all I really wanted to do was sell for material removal companies. Cincinnati Millicron, I sent stuff to Valinite. I would send my resume to Chicago so that my buddies could pad print or postmark it out of their mailbox, so nobody thought they had to relocate this young guy out of college, and nothing was working. So I went, and actually the job that I ended up with at Michigan Control Systems was posted here at Lawrence Tech. So I went on an interview, and I had like 5 other interviews, but they were all project managers, project engineers, nothing really that I wanted. So I ended up going to this interview, and they said the magic words. They're like, okay, well, we would love it if you would engineer and then gravitate towards sales and estimating. I'm like, okay, so now you have my attention. Then it was just working out the finances and what kind of paycheck I could pull down. So within 2 years of working there, Bob Overfield, my now partner at Michigan Environmental Controls, he mentored me to the point where I was out in front of the customer within a year and a half and basically doubled their sales. So already I'm just loving what I'm doing. I'm engineering controls for mechanical systems, learning all about buildings, the things that you just take for granted because you walk in, there's a thermostat on the wall. It's like, oh, it's too hot. Oh, it's too cold. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes in terms of energy consumption, air quality, you name it. There's just a lot more to it, and I learned it at a very rapid pace. So Michigan Control Systems at the time was repping a company called Robert Shaw. And Robert Shaw was owned by a company called CB. And CB had just bought Robert Shaw and Barbara Coleman, and they basically decided that they wanted a factory store to represent that product. So, we saw the handwriting on the wall. He took a buyout, and not contingent upon the buyout, what they really wanted was for my partner, Bob Overfield, to be the sales manager, or the branch manager, and they wanted me to be the sales manager. And that was like 3 years out of school. So all of a sudden, I'm going to be this sales manager, and we went over there, and what was interesting is I went from an environment where, even though I wasn't an owner at the time, it was a small business environment, so you could see everything that was going on. You could, you knew who owed you money. You knew where the job status was and what % we were billed to on everything from materials to programming to training and what percentages on all these jobs. And I knew all that. And it was only 3 years in, and because it was a small business environment, you were subjected to all these things beyond just the engineering of mechanical control systems. And I really loved that. And I'm like, okay, well, he got bought out, and I rolled with the buyout. I told him that, I understood what they wanted because they kept having meetings with me, and they kept saying, well, we're really happy that you're going to be here. We really want you to do this. And I'm like, I got the sense that they really wanted me to participate and go over there. But I was not contingent. I was not a piece of that buyout. So if you read the buyout, it basically said, hey, we don't have any claim on your future retained earnings for any of the jobs that you're closing out and all this other stuff. No mention of my name. But I felt that was an underlying tone of what they really wanted as part of what they were purchasing, or what they felt they were purchasing, CB. So when they bought out Michigan Control Systems, I told those guys I would roll with the program, but I felt like that I should get something out of it, because I thought that at the time they really wanted me involved in this whole buyout. So they ended up giving me some money to go with the program. We went to work for CB, and after 2 months, I went from an environment where you knew everything that was going on to an environment that if you wanted a proposal typed, you would handwrite it. Now, I could type 75 words a minute. All of a sudden, I'm handwriting something, handing it to some lady that works at the front who's got a PC, who's the only other person that has a PC except for the branch manager. And that's you're talking 1993. I don't know. I mean, I already had, that was the days, I hate to date myself here, but Commodore 64s, the early Macs. I mean, this is, but they were out there, and I already had all these proposals built. So, like, for me to actually go backwards in time was insane. and I had, there were steel desks, for gosh sakes. We went there, and then all the promises diminished. It was a large, and it just feels like, it was just feeling wrong. The whole thing was wrong. And I really did not want to play in that arena anymore. I told my now partner, Bob Overfield, who taught me everything, who's done controls for 30 years. I told him, I said, Bob, I can't do this anymore. He's like, it's been 2 months. I'm like, I know, but this is ridiculous. I mean, there's no reason for me to be here. I mean, they can get a robot, I guess, to do this job. I'm like, I don't estimate. Somebody else estimates it for me. They started cutting back on the amount of money that I had available for entertainment, which I know that that's ridiculous, but that was just like one thing they did. Then it was the cell phone. Oh, you talk too much on the phone. I'm talking to customers. I'm being in front of the customer. If I can't be in front of the customer, how am I going to sell the customer? I'm selling a relationship here. I learned that early on. That's what we do. That's what I do. I relationship sell. They're buying me and my ability to go provide them with the services that we have available. So my now partner Bob Overfield says, well, you know, I heard Johnson Controls is coming out with this program, and they are going to give Johnson Medisys, which is a product line of Johnson's, to these independent control contractors, which we were. So, and there was no lingo in his buyout that said, hey, you can't, you know, go off, they didn't pigeonhole him, and I was not signatory to any of the buyout. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, so let's meet with them, because maybe that's a better fit, because otherwise I'm going to go find something else to do if this doesn't work out, because I just don't see it as far as like what was there for me. And the first time that somebody came in from Johnson Controls, it was odd. The second time, it was twice as bad. They're flying in from Toronto. I mean, here's two guys. We don't have a business. We don't have a business plan. We have nothing except our relationships that we've built with the mechanical contracting community. And yet, they're flying in from Milwaukee on jets. They're driving in from Toledo. They're driving up from Cleveland, and all to meet with us and basically court us to take on their product line and be what is called an ABCS. They were coined for it's an authorized building control specialist. And we just kept looking at each other. We're like, well, why are they doing all this? It just seems like too much. And the only thing that we could figure is that maybe they lost touch with how to cater to the mechanical contractors as a large corporation. And that maybe this is a way that they can put a lid on the growing amount of business that they were losing to the independent control contractor. Downside for us, well, we're going to teach them how to do what they lost sight of. I mean, this is what we're thinking, right? Upside for us, we get the biggest name in control industry. We're repping them. They picked us, two guys with nothing. So we decided we were going to go for it. We actually did a sampling. We went to mechanical contractors. We didn't tell them who we were going to rep. We asked them how they felt about us just going out of nowhere and, you know, throwing up shingle, basically. And so we did it. And, you know, and that was in 1994. And we had really good mechanical contractors behind us. To this day, we have a framed check from one of our mechanical contractors who paid us within 15 days of receiving an invoice from us for $74,000. And all the money that we borrowed we had paid off in 4 months. So it's kind of the background story of how we got started. Let's see here. I guess I should have shown this picture the whole time, but hey, that's the way it goes. Our business model, building automation systems, direct digital controls. We do anything in the building space. We can do card access, we can do CCTV, we can do gas detection systems. There isn't much that we don't do. We're not the biggest, we're still not the biggest guys in town, but we're still one of the best. My current role, I wear a ton of hats. I sell, I engineer, I can program, I've pulled wire, I've mounted thermostats on the wall. I've done everything, taken out the garbage. I mean, when you're in a small business, you know, you've got to love it, and you've got to love the diversification of it. And I mean, that's really kind of what being an entrepreneur is. I mean, you have to definitely know where you want to be. And you want to be $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, all those things take you away from certain things because you can't do it all. This is like a basic system architecture. I don't know if you can see some of this stuff, but there's like an energy dashboard. You know, I did that wiring diagram, these complex air handling systems with frame and plate heat exchangers, graphical floor plans. We felt that, you know, these are pretty decent graphics. Before, I'd say like 3 years ago, you would never see graphics like this. We didn't have them. And we felt that that was something that customers were asking for, so immediately we sought out some of the best designers that knew HVAC equipment that could help us get the product where it needed to be and morph it into something else. There's another complex air handler. Energy dashboards, another newer product. I mean, if you talk about buildings today, everybody wants to talk about LEED buildings. Everybody wants to talk about sustainability. You know, when everybody talks about wind and geothermal and solar, well, the number one thing out there right now is conservation. I mean, there's the existing building market and retrofit market is probably in the $400 to $600 billion over the next, I don't know how many years. You know, they're just not doing new construction like they were doing it. When we started, it was like they would call us and we would do design build systems. I mean, they'd call us and say, hey, Kit, we've got a dynamometer testing facility we're doing. Can you come in and manage the fire alarm system, the FM 200, the gas detection? Can you do the gas detection? Can you lay out the gas detection? Sure, we can do that. So that stuff dried up. And there's not, I mean, I do like 1 dyno or 2 dynos a year. I mean, so all of a sudden, that new construction market, it died. I mean, when the economy tanked, it was okay, what are we going to do to change ourselves around? I mean, what's next? I mean, so we're left with the existing building market. What can we do? Well, we better learn how to be a better steward for our customer. How is he spending his electricity? How is he spending his gas? What do we have to do? Can we, you know, everyone talks about an energy dashboard. Well, that's just a bunch of pretty pictures arranged on a screen. What is the dashboard doing for you? Well, if it's not weather normalizing data, which means that if the outside air is warmer or cooler, what's your actual energy consumption based on your outside air temperature? That's weather normalization. If you don't weather normalize the data, what does it really mean? Nothing. You just have a pretty picture that shows how many kilowatt hours or, you know, CFM of gas you're consuming. So, I mean, this is just another product that we brought along to help us round out that existing building market. So, of course, we developed our website, and then, you know, we're like, okay, well, what's missing for our customers? We know that in most of these buildings that we've been to, that the people working in the building that are running the building are not engineers. They might be called a building engineer. 90% of the time, they aren't building engineers. That they're not as mechanically inclined as you folks. And we tend to train them and then hear how they haven't been trained. So to combat that and help our customer, we went down the road of, okay, like, what do we really need to do? We're gonna come up with a training program that's gonna be online. We'll give them at MEC Building Controls address, we'll give them a login, we'll give them a password, we'll let them access our internal YouTube videos that show them how to add controllers, add points, change schedules, so when they forget, they can go there. And some of these guys are really intelligent. It's just that they're wearing 50 hats because they had 10 guys working on, you know, a facility like Lawrence Tech even, and now there's 2. They just cut to the quick. And then there's the outsourcing that's happening now. There's a whole entire gravitational pull towards getting rid of all the janitors in these school districts. Some of these janitors are pretty smart guys, and they actually are more building engineers than some of the guys that are called building engineers that really are janitors, if you can. Insanity. But so we're ever trying to evolve our product to help our customer be better at his job, save gas, save electricity. All the things that we do are geared towards that. You know, that kind of takes me to, you know, the lessons that we've learned. And I started typing these out, and I could just keep going forever. I mean, you know, customers first. Well, actually, the customer's second. Really, your employees are first. You know, but when we started out, I really kind of was thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna get into this thing. I've got this partner. You know, what's going to make us successful in starting out in 1994? I mean, to give us the longevity to be here today and give us the staying power, what's going to make us different? Well, we definitely had synergy. You know, I had a partner who complimented me in the ways that you would need. He was very strong in the business side of things, didn't mind doing the paperwork. I was really strong in the sales, and he's a strong sales guy too, so we needed that. I was strong on the engineering side. I could program things. So when we started, I mean, that was it. 2 guys doing everything. We moved air compressors because this is back when they were still doing pneumatic systems where they had air compressors feeding pneumatic thermostats with these bimetals, and that would just, as the temperature would change in the room, it would just bleed off a little bit of air and change the spring range on an actuator. That's how it worked. I mean, you know, they finally, you know, broomed all that stuff. You don't see that today, but boy, it was everywhere. I mean, even today, I'm part of my strategic alliance is to team up with these, what's called an ESCO, and these are energy-saving companies that go out there and they'll do a performance contract and they'll rip out all the lighting and change it all over to, you know, T5s and the better T8s or even LED. And then on top of that, that's like the #1 payback. Well, number 2 is HVAC and conservation. So is the stuff being turned on and turned off? So I walk all these buildings. It's all pneumatic. And I look around and I start opening up stuff. I open up air handlers. And, you know, the one thing I find that really sticks in my craw is I go into these school districts and, you know, here's a 2005 bond issue. In other words, they, you know, approved the money in 2005 for this new construction of 2 new buildings, a middle school, a renovation of a high school, a brand new elementary school. And I go in there and I open up dampers and I look. They're not bringing in any outside air. You know, these kids are trying to learn. You know, they talk about all the testing scores, and here every damper that I go to is closed. Somebody programmed it to keep the damper shut so that it wouldn't trip the freeze stat. And I know I'm getting technical, but in essence, they were not solving the problem. They were just doing something that was convenient for them to keep it running at the expense of the kids. The room was at 1,650 parts per million. What does that mean? Well, 900 is where you'd start to ventilate per ASHRAE. I mean, it's really, there's a formula for it, but right, between 900 and 1,000, you're starting to ventilate. 1,650, you're not learning. You're not, I don't know how these kids, you know, and this was not a school district where, you know, I mean, these kids had challenges that were beyond, you know, learning. They had other challenges outside of school. I mean, this is not a school district that you know, where you'd be just that safe walking around. I mean, it's a bad neighborhood, and it just kills me. And then that's just one example. But that's a 2005 bond issue. 2005. If I go to an older school where it's pneumatic and I see the dampers closed, hey, look, that's neglect. I understand that. But I see that too. I walk around, they're all closed. So when these guys try and do a performance contract, they can't do it. Can't do it because dampers are closed. So how are you going to save them energy by bringing in more outside air? Well, you're not, but you're also in a breach of code. So, you know, one of our big strategies has been to team up with these energy saving companies. They hire us to do our end of things, which is just come in, engineer all the controls, upgrade all the controls, get them back to even playing field. And, you know, I mean, I love it. And hopefully it shows. But understand that, you know, also that it can be lonely. I mean, when I started, I mean, there's 2 of us. One guy's always doing something else. It's basically you. I mean, it falls on you. It's all about you. When you go down that road, you've got to do homework, and you've got to know that there's times where you're just going to be by yourself until you get employees and build it like we did. I mean, at one point we had 30 people. I mean, till that happens, it's a lonely day. Commit. The only way you can be successful in your venture is to definitely be 100% committed. You can't be wishy-washy. I mean, you're not going to say, oh, well, I'm going to try this, and if it's not really working out, then I'm going to do something else, because that's just not a recipe that's going to work for you. I like to set timelines, I mean, for personal timelines as well as employees. And, you know, incentivizing an employee, great way to, you know, make sure that he's going to be on track with that. And that gives him something to shoot for. You know, you can, it's kind of along the lines of having a good business plan, which I'm sure is in here somewhere. If you don't have a roadmap or a deadline, it's just going to float. It's always just going to float. In a small business, really everyone's an owner. I think I touched on that when I was working for Michigan and Michigan Control Systems. I mean, I felt like I was an owner even though I was just an employee. It was a small corporation. You had a lot of different things going on. Exceed your customers' expectations. I'm sure you've heard it before. Under promise, over deliver. It couldn't be more true. You definitely don't want to go out on a limb and tell them a bunch of things that aren't going to come through. And we try not to do that, and we always deliver, or at least try, or die trying rather. Manage risk. Entrepreneurs are risk takers. I mean, you you're out there, you're the only one that's going to invoice, you're the only one that's going to call them and collect money. I mean, at times, if you go down this path, you're it. And, you know, you've got to be in for that kind of game. You know, you monitor cash flow, and, you know, definitely make all your decisions based on your business plan and try and shape things that way. Be a leader. You know, you have to try to be a leader early. I mean, you guys are young. Get involved in things. I would say one of the best things was being a SIGEP, because I got to get involved and take a role and try that stuff out early on. It was a really great experience for me. But you've got to set a vision for your employees, and you've got to have a situation where you share your vision with the employees, get them engaged so that they can be behind you. And that's really what you want to do to try and make sure that you're successful. Embracing sales. You know, I think Don said something about you guys having sales classes here. I mean, that was kind of unheard of, but I mean, is that true? I don't know. But I would try to do anything related to sales if you're going to be go down the entrepreneurial path. Because if you can't sell, then there's no way you're going to get investors. You're going to have a tough time getting employees to follow you. People won't want to invest time. I mean, it's just not going to be a good situation if you can't sell. So that's one of the things you really have to try and excel at. And you definitely have to be passionate about everything that you do. Business plan, so important. I kind of touched on it earlier. If you don't have a business plan, you're never going to know where you're at. You don't know if you're growing, if you're shrinking. I mean, and you always want to be reviewing your business plan, see where you're at, look at the cash flow, look at the P&L, make sure that all of those things are in check with where you're trying to go. And if they're not, you need to reevaluate. But if you don't have a business plan, how are you going to reevaluate? Where do you even know where you're at on this path? You don't. You know, you definitely have to live. You need to have your business working for you. You can't be a slave to it. You can get sucked in and work 1,000,000 hours and have no life. That's really not what you're after. Hard work, absolutely. I'm all for it. You've got to have it, and that's part of working your plan. You got a plan, you work and work and work towards your plan, but you can't let your business run you. And you know, don't do it for the money. If you're passionate about it and you love it, and I will say that it will come. I mean, you know, if you're doing what you love, that's first and foremost. And you know, being an entrepreneur gives you a definite ability to have the freedom to do what you want to do. I mean, you can flexibly, or you have flex time. You can work late on a Sunday, you know, work all day and take off, go to the ball game on Tuesday. You know, I mean, I think it's like one of the best things that you can do. And you know, the future of entrepreneurship, you guys are in a unique position. You guys have all these programs that are being set up for you. You know, I didn't have any of that. I mean, I think that one of the unique things about being an engineer is the fact that you have the ability to solve problems. That's why you became an engineer, because you excelled in that arena. Well, being in business, that's what it's about. You're basically going through this gauntlet of ever-changing environment that has a, it's a good word. Well, at any rate, you're going down this road where problem solving is the key aspect of everything. I don't care what it is. It's like, okay, how are we going to logistically do this? Well, now we got to have a timeline. Oh, we need a schedule. How many guys? Well, when can we get the equipment here? How are we going to fit that in? Do we have to work overtime? All that stuff, it's just more problem solving. So, I mean, you guys have the skills to do this. If you couple that with some sales and a good business plan, you can attack it. You can get it done. And I would say the time is now. As far as going into business, going in early, your risk is low because you don't have a mortgage maybe, maybe you don't have kids to take care of, and that changes your appetite for risk. And understanding, even if you never started a business, if you understood the entrepreneur mind, I really think that it will help you excel in any company, because that employer is going to see someone who actually cares about the company and who comes up with ideas to help them excel in a strained business environment or a great business environment. You send money to the bottom line, that guy's going to love you. I don't care what size of the company is. By the way, I never timed anything, so I have no idea if we got time left or what.
Yep, 5 minutes.
So, I mean, I really enjoy working for myself. It's at times just a battle, and I start to think to myself, why do I do this? It's Sunday, everybody else is watching football or down at the Lions game, and I'm working. But then again, when summer's here, I'm also, if it's a sunny day, I can grab a customer and go to the ballpark. So, it's definitely a give and take. But if you balance it out and balance your work and your home life, you can have a great life being an entrepreneur. So, does anybody have any questions or? No? That's it? Come on.
Then I will start. I'll be the brave one. But first of all, thank you for the presentation. And I certainly think that one of the most important things that you were able to translate was that you need to love it. You need to love every day. But of course, the challenge that you had of balancing sometimes, the ability to stay with the current trends in the technology that you apply, at the same time as maintaining, staying up on top on how to market, for example, your website. As the company grew, were you in a position where you needed to delegate to new champions, for example, in those areas?
Well, we did, and you brought up a good point about technology. One of the things that one of my suppliers did is they said, all right, well, we're going to change this whole product line around, and we wanted to stay up with technology, and everybody was gravitating towards another protocol, actually 2 protocols, one BACnet and one LANWorks. We embraced the change. We decided that, okay, we were going to lay out all these new controllers, and we were going to lay out designs for engineers, and we put it in, and it was Rev 1.0, and it almost killed us. The product was not ready to be released. It was not a good situation. We ran all over town. I mean, I'll give you one example. Outside air sensor, you have to read outside air. That's how I know how to turn a boiler on. And that coupled with demand and schedule. Well, it turns out the way that they programmed their controller, if it went out of, because they were doing some kind of Celsius conversion and the base controller came from Europe, if outside air went below 40, it went out of range, it went invalid. So it didn't turn on any of the boilers. So I had 20 buildings all over town, and I mean, all over town, everywhere from Port Huron to north of Lansing, none of the boilers were on. And some of them didn't have remote access. So it's like, you know, you want to keep up with technology, but you want to do it safely, and you want to do it without exposing yourself too much. And I did learn that lesson. You know, I didn't think it was as big of a corporation as they were, that they would ever give me a product that wasn't proven out. So I mean, we almost got killed on that. So, you know, and of course, you know, we're trying to balance a home life and everything. Well, you know, those are the kinds of situations where everybody is out till 4 in the morning or 2 in the morning making phone calls to customers, asking them if we can come over there and fix something. You know, they're not going to say no, because they're not going to want to freeze the building. But I mean, it's ridiculous. You don't look good. You know, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it's like that's where, you know, technology got a little bit of, you know, it actually was a disaster. You know,
it is.
To say the least.
But I mean, you're trying to keep up with technology, and you want to lead the marketplace, but you want to balance leading the marketplace with exposure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I definitely learned a lesson there for that.
Then come up with a rule for yourself and for the company that said, like, how much of my systems am I willing?
Yeah, we'll do one.
Yeah, okay.
That was the new rule. We'll do one, and that's it.
Okay.
Right? Because we just did. That was just a major disaster, and that was just one of the problems with the product. You know, and then we got it all working, but I mean, it definitely cost us, and it cost us customers. You know, I mean, there was a couple guys that were like. They were questioning, like, well, you guys can't put this stuff in? Wait a second. You know, and you can't, you're not going to go, oh yeah, well, you can't blame it on the product, because they didn't hire the product. They hired you as the product. They don't care. You know, they just don't. Anybody else?
What are some of your other ventures that you started along the way, if there are any, and how did you get involved after starting the company?
Well, and that's the commitment level thing, and you know, I've done a couple different little things where I've started stuff up, and you know, haven't went at it full bore, and it definitely costs you. It's like if you really can't commit to it, you really need to stay away from it, because it's all it's going to do is suck up your time, and it's not going to go anywhere. You know, I mean, this has always been my core business, so I can never detract from that because it commands that much attention. But like, I started up a website, sports website with some guys, and you know, and we're still moving forward with that, and it's going really well. We're actually have exceeded the page views of the likes of the FSN. Fox Sports Network. So, you know, when you're going from 0 to 100 miles an hour, it's the funnest thing in the world. But you got to keep in mind one thing: how are we going to make money? What are our expectations time-wise to make money? What kind of time is going to be invested in that? Who do we need to get involved to round out our team? You know, and that's what's good about that venture, and the reason it's working is because there's a bunch of guys involved, so the burden doesn't fall squarely on me. I mean, there's guys that are more the core team doing the web design and writing articles and pulling people and organizing that stuff, and I'm helping behind the scenes to make sure that that's going in the right direction as far as marketing goes. You know, and we didn't really even touch on marketing, but you know, marketing is such a huge part of everything. You know, the logo you saw, well, we rebranded that in the face of a tanking market. So when things were horrible and we were cutting employees, we revamped the look of the whole company and what focus we had. So, you know, reinvention is like, and rebranding is almost like starting a company in itself. But, you know, it's, I love starting companies. I mean, I had a buddy call me the other day, and he starts telling me about what he's thinking, and you know, first thing out of my mouth is like, well, okay, well, how many customers could you get? Well, so how many of this and how many of that? And all I'm doing is calculating everything in my head. I mean, I think of everything in terms of, well, how much money can we make, and like, and what kind of time frame, and what would be the, you know, rollout time frame. You know, I mean, I love that stuff. I can, if I could just start companies, and I swear to God, I'd probably do it. I mean, it's probably the funnest thing, you know, to start out from nothing and create. I mean, it's a lot of fun. This is hard. It's hard work keeping it going and keeping it, you know, and having partners. You know, having partners is like having a marriage, you know, and you know, and it's not easy. But I've got good partners, and actually we took on another junior partner who's also SegUp, and he's helped round things out, and we've taken on new products that are all products that related to the building industry to help us at Michigan Environmental Controls capture that existing marketplace. At least one of them is a pneumatic wireless thermostat for those jobs where we come across all these pneumatic systems, and it's a microprocessor overlaid on top of a pneumatic thermostat, and it has a RF signal that goes back to a repeater. We bring that into the platform so a guy can see the temperatures in the space, branch line pressure, and all this other stuff. So, you know, we're always looking for new products and reinventing Michigan Environmental as on a daily basis, it seems like, if we're lucky.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, when you're starting something new and something that is somewhat unfamiliar to you, and you're having to make decisions, you know, maybe you're not the most experienced in this field, when you make mistakes, how do you handle that when it comes to your employees who are looking to you for that guidance, that leadership, and you just messed up?
Well, I mean, but that's going to happen. You can't be afraid to make a decision. If you make no decision, you're going nowhere. You can't be a leader like that. You know, like even embracing embracing that product the way that I did. I mean, you know, it was a mistake. I had employees that were, you know, one guy, he was just frustrated. I mean, he left. You know, and he didn't leave only solely because of that. One of the reasons he left was because of the, you know, his wife wanted him to work where she was working, but whatever. But, you know, I don't know, it just seemed bizarre. But he was the greatest guy in the world, and we're still friends. But he, you know, he was frustrated like anything. I mean, we all were. I mean, you know, and it was a mistake. But, you know, I'm not going to make that mistake 10 times. I'm not going to make it 2. And I got it. I was one of the ones running around fixing stuff. I mean, I can upload, download, write code. I can do it all. I never ask my employees to do anything that I don't do. You know, I mean, I had there was a launch downtown that was tough because we had and in this case, the supplier gave us another appliance that was first rev, but we only put it in this project. We didn't do it all over the place, but there was still problems with it. So at 2 in the morning, when he's reprogramming this stuff and putting patches on network controllers, well, I'm sitting there right there with him. He's like, "Oh, you can go home." I'm like, "No, man, that's not the way it works." You know, you got to lead by example. You got to be there, you know. But you got to make mistakes. And when you venture down that road, you don't say, "Oh, well, God, I don't know that much about, you know, this area." Well, you better learn fast. I mean, you got to, you know, it's one thing to take on a product that you thought was supposed to work. You know, a guy tells you, "Hey, here's my new product." You know, it's a billion-dollar corporation saying, "Here's my stuff. Go put it in." "Oh, all right, great. What are the features? What does it do? How are my customers going to love me for it? What is that?" I mean, that's what you're thinking, right? So.
When you're looking for partners to start up your company, somebody who knows what they're doing, what's the best way to network to make those connections?
God, you know, I mean, with LinkedIn and Facebook and all the different forums out there right now, I mean, you can find those people. They're out there, but you have to be careful because it's, you know, personally, I'm always more comfortable if it's somebody that is in some kind of professional organization that maybe you become a member of, where you can network within a group of professionals, as opposed to running into somebody that says that, hey, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can do it. Well, you know, there's a lot of guys that say they can do it. I mean, you know, you could take any product out there, any, you know, when I look at stuff, it's like I look at every business this way. I'm like, oh, well, what are they doing wrong? What are they doing right? How are they losing money? You know, how could you make more money doing what they do? You know, that's how I think. You know, my wife goes ballistic sometimes because I keep, you know, I was talking to my buddy the other day on the phone, and, you know, I can't help it. I'm like, well, so what do we need to do? I'm like, well, what would you call it? I'm like, how many customers do you think that we would need to get a good sampling of how it would work and be received throughout the United States? Oh, really? So then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'll send you a mystery call sheet. Yeah, we could, you know, I'm like, oh, you know, my wife just goes nuts. She's like, you need more work. Yeah, great. You know, because I mean, and of course, you know, this is my core stuff, but I can't help it. I look at it and I'm like, well, how can we make money? And I think that every time. And, you know, the thing is, if you get around a group of people in a professional organization that are knowledgeable about it, you know, there's a group for every industry. There's a group for every thing out there. I mean, you know, that's where you want to find them. And then you want to find their strengths, you know. Like my partner's good on the business side, and he takes care of the money. I don't have to do that. I have that luxury, you know, and he doesn't have to stand on a roof and explain to people why it's not our problem. You know, seems to be a common theme. You know, people don't want to hear it. They always think they're right, and, you know, sometimes you gotta show them, hey, look, you know, or sometimes you're wrong, but, you know, he has the luxury of not doing programming and engineering, and I get the luxury of not having to call people and complain about the fact that they're over 90 days.
And you said, you know, your first job was heavily in sales engineering, and even, I know you said you use a lot of those skills and still had to do it when you started your own company. When you're establishing that kind of relationship and you're working that kind of job, what is kind of the day-to-day process? Like, how do you attract and work with customers and sell them on yourself and your company?
Well, for us, you know, our industry, they actually have a construction association of Michigan. Most guys are members of that. So here's this list of guys, you know, that you can go after to go get work. And all these guys are bidding on these projects. And so I started in the plan inspect market, where I was calling on these guys that were bidding documents that architectural and engineering firms put out. And so there's, you know, okay, here's like company X, Y, and Z. Well, you have to go, the only way you're going to get any work out of these guys is actually form a relationship with them. So I'd call on them and be in their office and ask them what else they need, and, you know, make sure that they have a number for my section of the specifications, which is controls for the most part, when it's a plan inspect job. But then as you develop their confidence and they understand you know what they're doing, then they would get us involved in the design build stuff, which is where for the longest period of time where all our money came from. I mean, before we had to morph everything, and you know, it's no matter what you get involved in, it's going to change. You can make a widget, and that widget's not going to be the widget anyone wants to buy 2 days later, or 2 years, or 3 years. I mean, whatever that time frame is, you're going to have to change, and you know, even your customers may change. Now we're chasing these, you know, ESCO companies because it takes a better contractor to get involved with those guys. You know, they're not just going to call company XYZ to go walk 12 buildings and tell them how much to revamp everything, rip out everything, and I mean, they're asking, what do we need to do? Oh, we can put freak drives over here, we can do this. And during the unoccupied, we can close all the valves by changing the pressure of this, and I mean all these different strategies that we can bring to the party. Well, that's what we're demonstrating, technical ability, and that's what they know that we can handle it, and so now all of a sudden that's the customer we're going after, because for Planet Spec, a lot of that stuff dried up, and when it did, that's what we had to do to go get work. So.